a down feed belt. If you haven't seen the belt splicing video, I'll put a link to the video in the description area. Hello, and thanks for joining me. Well, been tying up some loose ends. Got the down feed belt put on. Working on the vise that came with the mill. It's not a really good mill vise, but it will, it's a good drill press vise, but I'll have to get a good mill vise, but I may use that temporarily. Found out the motor isn't any good. The 1750 half horsepower motor, took it to a motor shop several miles from here, and the guy said it was definitely no good. So I'm without a motor. But I contacted Vever, and they sent me a 1.5-horse motor, so we're going to see how that does. It was a good price. Hopefully it does good. And they also sent me these wheels, and I'm really wanting to see them work. They look heavy duty. There were 4 for about 50 bucks, 55, something like that. They're self-leveling, rated for 1,100 pounds each. I think that's the static load. For the casters are rated something a little bit less than that, but pretty close. But the mill is 1,250 pounds, so that should be plenty. I got 4 of them. We're gonna make a way to roll this thing around my shop and solidify it for when I'm using it. And then the motor will get here. I don't have the motor yet, but when the motor gets here, we'll finish the video installing the motor and giving this mill a try. So first thing we're gonna do is finish up that vise, and then we'll work on the, I guess you want to call it a dolly, mobile stand. Anyway, let's get started. Had this in Evaporust for probably about 35 hours, something like that. Totally clean. Wonderful weather. Nice. Okay, let's make these machine movers, or mobile platform, whatever you want to call it. Here's the wheels, and they will mount underneath this right there. So it'll basically look like this. And the milling machine will. There'll be two of them, one for the front and one for the back. I've already cut these pieces. We're in the process of cutting these. Okay, got all the pieces cut, the ends milled square. The length is all the same, although that's not really critical. Being square is really critical. It'll help us in assembly. That piece is that piece. We've got to drill a hole and cut an arc on that. And got to mill 2 slots in this. That's what we're going to do next. Okay, what we need here is a slot right here, leaving 1/8 inch right there. And then we'll do the same right there. I got it lined up with the edge of my vise there. So I'm going to touch off. Reset my DRO. And go 5/8 inch. It's a 1/2 inch plus 1/8. This should be, give me an 1/8 inch lip there. Okay, lock my table. Now I'm going to touch off on the top. There I am right there. Reset my down DRO. Go 1/8. Doesn't have to be a 1/8. I'm going to go 100 thousandths. It's just for positioning. Okay, we got all those cut. Now we got to drill and cut those arcs. I like it. Well, I think this turned out about like what I expected. Now I've got to take it apart and clean up the metal a little bit. That's one disadvantage to TIG welding. Biggest disadvantage in my opinion. It'll weld through mill slag, but not very well. It welds much better if it's spotless clean. Right. It's a center punch. It had a square head on it. I'm going to make a long center punch. I think I got a better tap. Well, let's move this thing around. I got these brackets very slightly crooked. Doesn't really show, but they're very slightly that way on a couple of them. It may affect how it rolls. Oh, yeah, I was afraid of that. That's a design flaw on my part. There's a cutout right here. In other words, the casting goes like that and then down. Like it's got 4 little feet on the sides. And it wasn't as wide as this. It's only about that wide, and when the caster turns, all the weight shifts to this side, and so I'm going to have to put a spacer in there. Doable, doable. Well, there they are, all done. Let's give it a try. Not bad. Not bad at all. Impressive. Very impressive. Let me show you what I did here. This base has an offset. I explained this once before, but just to be clear, it has like an offset, like little feet on the corners. And it has the same on the sides too. And I had to compensate for that little offset. And previously I didn't have that compensation in there, but I put a bolt right there. That's what we just did. And the head of that bolt screwed all the way in was just enough to take care of that little offset there and keep that level along with the bolts on top there. But I'm very impressed. I didn't get these exactly parallel with the floor. There's as much of an 1/8 inch out of level. It kind of moved when I welded it. Doesn't seem to affect how they roll. They roll good. Okay, to adjust these, to lower the feet, to make these stationary, it's a thumb wheel right here. You can see like a black edge right here. I'm raising it up there. That black edge is getting higher. So, I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not. Right now I'm dropping it down. So counterclockwise drops it down. It's just a little thumb wheel here. It's not really easy to turn. And that was the #1 complaint in the reviews. But the way I look at it, these are cheap, very inexpensive compared to most of these. And most of them had the same complaint. But you don't need to get the caster completely off, the weight completely off the caster. Just firm that up like that, and now you're sitting on the rubber foot. And I tried it just a minute ago, and the mill is very solid. I'm not saying you can't get any movement, but it's very solid. So I'm going to firm up the rest of these, and we'll show you how solid it is. Here we go. I'm going to do what I can to move the mill. About all I can do. I was grabbing the table and shaking it. Very solid. For 50 bucks, you can't go wrong. A little bit time consuming to solidify your machine, but if you're just moving a machine around occasionally, this is the way to go. Thanks to Bever for sending the casters. I'll put a link to the casters in the description below. So we're ready to move on to the motor. And yes, Bever supplied the motor too. I haven't opened the box yet. Hopefully it mounts to the mounting plate. It's supposed to be a standard mount. If it doesn't fit the mounting plate, it's probably my screw up, because I'm not really familiar with the types of motor mount, but I'm pretty sure it fits. It's got a wiring diagram for their general purpose single and three-phase motors there. Looks impressive. Ah, it's got a thermal overload. I didn't know that. This is a 1 horsepower. The mill originally had supposedly a 1/2 horsepower. Well, I was thinking about repainting it, but I think I'm going to leave it as is. That's a nice looking motor. Now let's see if this mounting bracket fits. Drum roll, please. Boy, I hope it. The wiring, the switch on the mill is on this side, so that'll work out good. Okay, the old motor was a 3/4 inch shaft, and this motor is 5/8. The old motor was 1/2 horsepower, and this is 1 horsepower. But I talked to the guy at the electric motor shop. He said unless you've got a really old motor, the standard is 5/8 until you get to 1.5 horse, and at 1.5 horse they go to 7/8. So 3/4 non-existent apparently. Anyway, I got an adapter. Which hopefully fits. I'm a little bit worried now. Let's make sure this is actually 5/8. Dead on. 625 exactly. So probably going to have to cut that off. This shaft is a little bit too short, but the lockdown, it mounts this way and the lockdown's toward the motor, so it should work okay. Probably should cut that down. I'm going to cut that down. Okay, I cut it down. It wasn't hardened in any way. Came with a tall keyway, which is going to have to be cut down too. The bottom of that key slot was cut with a horizontal mill, more or less. So it curves upward, so if the key slides back, it gets tighter. I better not drive that on there too far. We'll check, see where it needs to be on the mill. Needs to go in about a 1/16 of an inch more. Let's say that's it. Okay, all we lack is wiring. Hopefully that'll go all right. Drum switches are kind of confusing. Okay, the wiring is on the motor and on the insert. Let's see if they match. I'm sure they do. Yes. I really like those wheels. When I get it where I want it, I'll drop the feet down and that thing will be solid. Well, I got the motor installed. I didn't cover too much of that because, to be honest with you, I struggle when it comes to electrical stuff. We did pretty good. My brother-in-law helped me with some of the wiring on it. It's really not what I would call complicated wiring, but reverse switches to me are kind of confusing, and I didn't really feel like I was an authority to cover this. The instructions and the layout from Vever, outstanding. Most of the Chinese products, the instructions are terrible, but the diagrams and everything were really, really solid. Thanks to Vever. They sent me the motor. I didn't pay for the motor, they sent it to me, but Vever did not pay me to advertise their motor. So this is an honest review. So far, it's been a good motor. Of course, it's not really been tested very well, but the documentation for it and the installation was very good. I've tried it a few times, but I removed this. That's the swivel base, and the swivel base made the vise move around. They're kind of notorious for that. There's some flex in there. This is not really a very good mill vise anyway. It's probably more like a drill press vise. It'll probably do okay, but that's not my permanent vise. I'll get a better vise. The down feed works amazing. Let me show you the down feed. This button right here engages the down feed when you push it. And this, push down on that to release it. But this rod right here, this tab, you'll see it when I move it. Triggers or releases the down feed. So, let me turn it on. Oh, it sounds good. Sounds nice. Hit the down feed. Releases the down feed. Works great. I like it. The motor speeds, not the motor speeds, but the pulleys and the belts, they're a pain in the neck to change. I'm getting kind of used to doing it, but getting your hands in there to change those belts around, a three-phase motor would probably, with a VFD, would probably be better. That's the down feed. I got it on the fastest right now. I had it on the slowest, which is probably most appropriate for most things, but for the demonstration I thought it'd do better with it in the high speed. The larger pulley on the spindle would be your higher speed. Pretty easy to change, but it's got 3 speeds. Well, let's give it a little demo. It's about an 1/8 inch cut with a 3/8 end mill. I know that's not a big cut. I have no coolant, no air hooked up yet. I usually at least have air blowing the chips out of there. I like it. Anyway, I'm very pleased with this mill. I've got a lot to learn. Any new machine, there's all kinds of quirks and stuff you just gotta kind of learn on. But I gotta build a collet rack, hook up a DRO. More videos to come. I'll get a new vise for it. It'll find a permanent spot when I find a buyer for my RF30, which I think I've already got it sold. RF30's actually been a really good mill. I don't like the round column, but after I put the guide in there, it's been a good one. Anyway, that's it for the Wells Index Model 40 restoration. Thanks for joining me. Be sure and subscribe and ring that bell. Oh, and thanks to Bever for the motor and the wheels.